Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Men in Stripes. My name is Matt Wilson. Tim is off tonight, as we said in our free agency thing last night, and his loss, of course, is our gain because we have Sean with us, one of our great writers over at StripeHype.com. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm pretty new to this whole thing, so this is going to be a fun little experience for me and for you guys listening right now. So, ready to get this whole thing started.
So for those who don't know, of course, I live in Pittsburgh. Well, so does Sean. So there are two people who are traders in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So this is kind of the cool thing that we don't actually have somebody in Cincinnati area tonight.
Oh. So this is going to be a whole new thing.
A little bit. Of course, I've been kind of on with the project since the beginning, so everybody's used to hearing my monotone voice, so hopefully a little more personality comes out. But let's get it started. Of course, biggest news of the day is Vinny Ray.
Yep.
Signs his deal, 3 years, $11.5 million. What's your thoughts on bringing Vinny Ray back?
I'm actually completely fine with it, looking at, how he's produced and everything. It goes to show that I don't think the Bengals are willing to draft high on a linebacker this year, but at the same time, Vinny Ray has shown that not only is he a good player altogether, but he looks to be just somebody that, players look up to. And also, I think a lot of his play can be attributed to whenever Vontaze Burfict was out earlier last year, but he seems to be the kind of guy who knows that entire defense, knows what to call whenever, changes happen. So I'm all for the deal. And actually, it's the price actually isn't bad at all when you think about it.
No, actually, this year it looks like he's scheduled to make close to what Vontaze Burfict's making at about $3.3 million, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
So not a bet, or I'm sorry, I'm wrong, 3.83 million or something like that. So I'm not upset about that at all.
No.
But, of course, with the signing of Vinny Ray comes the non-signing of Emmanuel Lemur.
Yeah.
So a little bit of a change there, obviously. I think most people expected Lemur to be kind of out the door, at least, especially if they could seal up Vinny Ray like they did. So P.J. Dawson's there.
Yes.
So they do have a little bit of security blanket. Seems like depth-wise they might be at least okay.
Yeah. I know from what I've seen, they've been looking at a lot of those safety linebacker hybrids in the college level. So it wouldn't surprise me if they spent like a second, third day, later round draft pick on one of those to try and develop them because, that's kind of what they wanted Lemur to be. They tried to make Taylor Mays be that. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went to look that way in the draft either.
No, absolutely. They definitely are looking for somebody who can be versatile. Of course, the other news coming, which I know Tim and I kind of covered last night, but the other news kind of coming out late yesterday was the re-signing of Adam Jones, and kind of what that means a little bit, and for you two, what you think. What does that mean, of course, for Leon Hall, who is looking for at least another year in the NFL?
Sad to say that I just don't think the Bengals are going to bring him back unless he takes like a veteran minimum, to be honest, because he's still a very good cornerback, but you have Drake Kirkpatrick, you have Darqueze Dennard, you have Adam Jones coming back, and then you have Josh Shaw, who actually shown a lot of bright spots last year. So they might not, they might be willing to, move on from Leon Hall, which, he did very well, but at the same time, he's getting kind of older. So they might be going with the youth movement right now.
Well, definitely not the wrong move. I shouldn't say that. But it definitely seems like at least outside of Adam Jones, who of course is in his early 30s.
Yes.
It seems like they've got at least one or two leaders there, and then the rest are kind of going, okay, we need speed, we need some youth, people that we can help grow.
Correct.
So definitely not a bad move. Of course, the other news coming out of Bengals camp is that Mohamed Sanu has officially signed with the Atlanta Falcons. Sad to see him go, or do you think that it was just kind of that time and we had all kind of moved on at that point from him?
I mean, I think the Bengals wanted to re-sign him, but at the same time, it just didn't seem like Sanu had the same interest, which doesn't mean that he was disinterested in the Bengals per se, but just probably his role. Because let's be honest, there's so many other targets, and he just wasn't getting enough. I mean, 2014 in the beginning, he was taking on the world, but then, as time went on, less targets. But, I mean, I'm happy for him because he's making really good money out in Atlanta. Like, really, really good.
Definitely a number that I don't think the Bengals were comfortable matching for sure.
Correct, yeah.
Coming out at $32.5 million over 5 years. So
yeah, that's a lot.
He's definitely Atlanta thinks that he's a number 2 receiver, and maybe the replacement, of course, for Roddy White, who had been the number 2 wide receiver there behind Julio Jones for the longest time.
Yeah.
So, kind of going into surprise Marvin Jones. Surprise Marvin Jones got as much as he did first off. Are you surprised by number one that the move that Detroit made, especially $9 million for the first 3 years? Surprised by that move at all? And do you think it's something that the Bengals should have tried to match?
I'm not surprised by it at all, considering, they're losing their best player on that team in Calvin Johnson. So they need other weapons. And, I mean, when you look at that team, it was pretty much just Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate. And now you're bringing in Marvin Jones, and that gives you 1A and 1B instead of someone being the number 1 and number 2. So it doesn't surprise me, and it actually seems like a very good fit for Marvin Jones. Actually, I saw that the Bengals were willing to go to around like $8 million with him. However, he just felt it was a better fit to go that way, which whenever you think about it, kind of makes sense because, I mean, there's AJ Green, there's Tyler Eifert, and then obviously Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu, and there's a lot of other targets, but in Detroit, he would basically be borderline number 2 who could possibly become a number 1. So more money plus, better stats, more attention and everything just to develop himself.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely. I agree with that to a point. I think one of my biggest things, at least for Marvin Jones, is Golden Tate, of course, knows the system better.
Yeah.
Than Marvin Jones will, but Golden Tate's size, it's kind of like what I know. If you have read any of Tim's articles, he's high on Will Fuller, but it's the same kind of concern I have with Will Fuller. I think his size is something that's going to hurt him more than help him. I believe he's 5'9", 5'10". So he's not really that true number one size, go up and get the ball type guy.
Yeah.
He's the breakaway, create space type guy. So do you think Marvin Jones in Detroit's going to become, or has the potential of becoming that go up and get the ball kind of guy?
I believe he has potential, and there might be some growing pains because, I mean, he never really was the number 1 receiver ever. Well, I mean, obviously besides Cal, but now it's going to be more so a lot more looks his way because that's a pass-happy offense. But I believe that, honestly, I think he'll do fine. It wouldn't surprise me if he had some growing pains in the beginning, but I think he'll get along just fine. I think we could see him with over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdown type of season.
Yeah. No, it's definitely an interesting move to say the least. There in terms of kind of a double number 2 wide receiver instead of a true number 1.
Yeah.
But good for Marvin Jones for at least getting a little bit of a payday.
Oh yeah.
So moving on there, obviously they lose their number 2 and number 3 wide receiver. They have, of course, James Wright, Rex Burkhead, and the guy that I think most of us here despise, Brandon Tate.
Yeah.
So with that being said, is wide receiver become the biggest need for the Bengals, or do they have something else that they need to focus on, maybe first and foremost, whether it be free agency or draft?
wide receiver is obviously the biggest need, to be honest. I mean, whenever it's A.J. Green and then you have a big drop-off afterwards. People talk up, Mario Alford. People talk up, Jake Cumro, or I forget how to pronounce his name. And then, obviously, people also talk up James Wright. But at the same time, these guys haven't really done anything in the NFL, and you're basing a lot of hope in just these guys being able to step up. And obviously, Tate, just didn't really do much in the receiving department. Even look in the 2014 season, whenever we didn't have Marvin Jones and, A.J. Green was out for quite some time, not many other receivers besides Mohamed Sanu stepped up. So now that he's gone, what do we really have? I mean, Rex Burkhead showed up a little bit in the playoffs, but there wasn't really much else from him. So I think what it comes down to is I believe the Bengals would be willing to look at a young receiver in free agency that's not going to cost much, or if somebody, obviously gets cut. But I believe that their number one goal is probably going to be drafting a receiver, whether it be in round 1 or round 2. But actually, I could see them drafting 2 receivers, because last time they drafted Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu. Before that, they drafted Andre Caldwell, and there was one other guy that they drafted. But they seem to like to always go with 2s whenever it's getting a wide receiver to develop into the number 2 spot.
No, absolutely, and I think Mohamed Sanu kind of missed his chance missed his chance at least in Cincinnati, because he was the first round draft pick or third round draft pick. I'm sorry, and Marvin Jones was a 5th round.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of looks like Mohamed Sanu was supposed to be that number 2, and Marvin Jones was supposed to be that number 3, and it didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
So with that being said, who, at least on your radar, is, kind of who the Bengals should be looking at least in the draft at this point? And, do you see any free agents on the market that you like, that you think the Bengals would even have a shot of bringing in, whether they make him the number 3 receiver, number 2 receiver, and draft somebody maybe a little later?
I believe my top guy is Josh Doxson from TCU. By far my favorite wide receiver in this draft. I think he would benefit greatly. He makes a lot of acrobatic catches. The biggest knock that they had against him was his speed, but he pretty much put a lot of that to rest at the Combine. Really like him. Another guy that I really like that, we could get later on, well, not later on, but probably 2nd, 3rd round-ish if we're pushing it, would be Tyler Boyd from Pitt. Now, he doesn't have the greatest numbers. He had a low touchdown percentage, I know that, but at the same time, when you look at everything that was around him, especially the quarterback play, it was very subpar around him, but he did very well there. He actually had a very quiet but a very good Combine. And when it comes to free agency, I actually wouldn't mind the Bengals looking at Curley that the Jets just released. I think he would be a very, very good addition. I think I could see him becoming a number 3, possibly number 2 if he lives up to his potential, but I could see him being a number 3 receiver, and I would definitely like him to be on board.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think, of course, we both can get on the Tyler Boyd thing. We've seen Tyler Boyd kind of in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So one thing, obviously, Tyler Boyd actually had his first 2 years with Pitt were actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Pat Narduzzi came in Pitt, and the system was kind of a bigger adjustment for Tyler Boyd. But at the same time, still performed decently under a different system. So he has the ability to adjust with time.
Yeah.
So what we see with that, obviously, is Tyler Boyd, I think, is a good pick. 2nd round, as you said. I don't think he's going to drop to the Bengals in the 3rd. So if you're going to get him, you have to get him in the 3rd round or the 2nd round for the Bengals. One guy that is high on my list, he's been compared to A.J. Green, of course, also went to the same university as A.J. Green, would be Malcolm Mitchell out of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Guy who is still developing, still kind of coming up to speed, played a little bit of injury plague,
Mm-hmm.
but a guy that has hands and can go up and get the ball and is talented
Yes.
when healthy. And so coming out of SEC, which the Bengals like to draft from, Bengals love the SEC for sure. It's somebody I think that could fit into the Bengals system well.
Yeah.
And somebody who might develop into that. Another, fourth round type guy that the Bengals could get a later pick who might become that number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's definitely a little bit of it's not a huge depth in terms of wide receiver, but it's definitely not shallow.
Yes.
When it comes to the draft. As for Curley, I'd love to see Curley in a Bengals uniform. Curley is very talented. Numbers, he has 5 years into the league. Mohamed Sanu only had 4. But in that, he really could be a solid number 3 wide receiver for the Bengals. Might be able to move into a number 2, but 2,225 yards, 9 touchdowns in 5 seasons. Mohamed Sanu only had 2 more touchdowns but had less yards. So somebody who knows how to find space and get the ball.
Yeah.
A little bit of a struggle in New York. I don't know if that's because, of course, they had the huge change with Rex Ryan leaving.
Yeah.
And if it just wasn't a fit for a system for him. But definitely a talented individual that if he can get back on the right path, which the Bengals have done with players before.
Yeah, they have.
Just on the defensive side, but they have been able to do it before.
Yeah.
It's somebody that I think the Bengals could get at a relatively good price and still, have that option for that number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Curley, I've always liked Curley. I always liked what he brought to the table. And whenever I saw that he was released, the first thing I thought was just get him here. Just get him here. Because I mean, obviously we saw the, rumors that Sanu wasn't going to be here. So obviously I'm just sitting here like, just get him. Just bring him in. It's supposed to happen. It's meant to be.
No, absolutely. I mean, these guys, and granted they have a good talent evaluator in Duke and Duke Tobin, but it's going to be interesting to see if Jeremy Curley is quickly courted by other teams and how long he'll be a free agent. So a couple other things. I think you had one idea that we wanted to get into, and now I'm blanking on it. That's bad. Let's see. Hobson. Jeff Hobson, Bengals.com, talked about that McCarron would be a good trade bait, maybe even for a second rounder.
Yeah. He on the radio he said that. Well, first he said the Bengals were not willing to trade away McCarron, but then whenever they discuss for a second rounder, they said they might be open to it.
Okay. I didn't. Now I don't. Unfortunately, I don't listen to Jeff Hobson's show much. I probably should, but I don't pay attention that close. I pay a little bit more attention to our rivals and friends because, of course, the former editor that we had, StripeHype.com, went to Cincy Jungle. So I do pay attention to their radio show a little bit, and I mean we've been talking about this for a while at StripeHype.com.
Yeah,
and that is that he would at least be interesting to see what they could get for him. Not so much that they should trade him, because number one, I brought up last week that he's one of those that is almost kind of hard to replace, because now you have to ask the question of who's going to replace him.
Yeah.
But it's at least an interesting notion of what they would get for him.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, do you think second round is almost too much to ask, number one? And number two, do you think maybe, especially with the talent that he is and where teams are going to start drafting quarterbacks this year, would it be appropriate maybe even to ask for a number one?
Second rounder, it's actually very dependent because when it comes down to it, whenever you look at, contracts that, Brock Osweiler got whenever he started 7 games, he's making now $72 million. And the free agent market when it comes to quarterback is pretty low. I mean, obviously, there's RG3, but he's going to want starter money. And some teams are going to be looking at him like, all right, should we get him or not? Yada, yada, yada. Second round pick, I'm not sure if a team would give it, but it wouldn't surprise me because, I mean, when you sit down and think about it, I mean, the Jets, who do the Jets have outside of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Geno Smith? They really have no one else. And then you just have to look at all these other situations. I mean, obviously, Hugh Jackson in Cleveland, and obviously they've lost a lot of players this year, so you could use that as leverage. But would the Bengals get a second-round pick for McCarron? I don't know. I think it all depends on if anything happens with Colin Kaepernick, because I'm pretty sure that's one of the hot commodities going around in the trade bait right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if a team, I view it as this: if a team is not willing to trade a second-round pick for Colin Kaepernick, there's no way there's any AJ McCarron's going anywhere for a second-round draft pick.
No, absolutely. I think that is probably going to be the benchmark for what happens with AJ McCarron, what he's worth, everything that way.
Yeah.
Although I don't think, at least from last season, that Colin Kaepernick is, at least it looked like he was a shell of his former self. At least the year before with Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Do you think that's just a system thing that happened with Colin Kaepernick, or do you think there's something a little deeper there?
I think a lot of it had to do with the system, and I mean, whenever you look at this is gonna, I'm just gonna let it all out there. When you look at a lot of players in the 49ers situation, it just doesn't seem like a lot of players are happy with the front office, like, at all. Just no one seems happy. No one seems like they're enjoying anything. I mean, Chip Kelly with Colin Kaepernick, that's a match made in heaven. But for Kaepernick to want to, be traded after getting, like, pretty much the dream coach that would benefit him greatly, that goes to show that there's probably something that we don't know. Like, there's stuff going on behind the scenes. So if your player's not happy and he's trying to get out of there, it really doesn't surprise me that, he would be a shell of his former self, because, well, let's be honest, he didn't have the same passion that he always showed last year. It just seemed like he was just like, all right, I'm here. I'm throwing the ball. Whatever.
Yeah, and it seems like, too, that Kaepernick almost, it's not so much the head coach.
Yeah.
As it is the ownership and his relationship with the front office in comparison to the day-to-day player management of the head coach and coaching staff.
Yeah.
Obviously, probably one of the biggest things that people are looking at and kind of watching closely, at least looks like it on ESPN, is what's life after Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Especially right now. And right now, I don't know if there's a big life to be had with Colin, or after Colin Kaepernick at this moment.
Yeah. What is there after Kaepernick? You have Blaine Gabbert. Okay. And then you look at, their draft position. I mean, I highly doubt they're going to get, one of the best quarterbacks in this draft. Someone's going to get both Carson Wentz and Goff. And then you have Paxton Lynch, who would fit Chip Kelly's system, but he showed struggles with, pro-style offenses and reading defenses. Mm-hmm. So it's just a big drop-off, and it really is kind of sad because Chip Kelly and Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco makes a lot of sense, but he doesn't seem happy, and if he's to go, then you're gonna get another top 10 draft pick, possibly even number 1, because let's be honest, there's not really much in that town anymore after the whole Jim Harbaugh debacle.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, people could argue that RG3 would be a half decent fit with Chip Kelly, but then the issue there is he's never been the same since his knee.
Yeah.
He's not as quick, and he doesn't trust his front foot.
No, he does not.
And so it seems like, draft is going to be a big thing there. So the question there becomes, at least system-wise, with somebody like a Christian Hackenberg out of Penn State, or would a Connor Cook out of Michigan State kind of be the next best thing for Chip Kelly to back, where he may be looking to even trade down a little bit into the first round to go back a little bit so that he is getting a Connor Cook or a Christian Hackenberg and not overpaying for him. And so definitely not a bad thing there if they can get somebody who is talented but for the right price. And I agree with you. Paxton Lynch concerns me a little bit with his consistency. Obviously, he can learn that.
Yeah.
One of the big things we're seeing right now with the Bengals is the fact that maybe Marvin Lewis knew what he was doing when he went with Andy Dalton over Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
And number 2, maybe Mike Brown doesn't have as much control of the draft for a reason.
Yeah. I mean,
and so
didn't it go on record that Mike Brown wanted Ryan Mallett or Colin Kaepernick?
He said he wanted Colin Kaepernick over Andy Dalton when it came down to it, and Marvin Lewis looked and said, "Listen, I want Andy Dalton. He's going to fit our system better. He's the direction I want to take this team." And Mike Brown said, "Okay."
Yeah.
Didn't put up much of a fight, and so it's looking a little better for for Marvin Lewis there. But again, I'm one that I think that the Bengals should have Marvin Lewis as their GM.
Yes, I agree with that.
I no offense to Duke Tobin, and even if they kept Duke Tobin in a player personnel role in the front office and kind of made him where he was dealing with more of the contract side and Marvin Lewis was dealing with more of they were kind of working as GMs maybe. You really see a possibility of Marvin Lewis being almost kind of perfect for that role, and everybody's chiming that he's not a postseason coach, and he's not a postseason coach, but he can get some talent.
Yeah,
and so it seems like it would be a good fit.
I agree with that fully. I think it's very interesting because I believe a lot of Bengals fans, we really do like Marvin Lewis. Sometimes he, obviously makes us mad, and sometimes he's head scratching and makes us break TVs and stuff. But at the same time, he's a very player friendly coach. Players love to play with him. Players enjoy him. Players look up to him. He's like the role model, the father figure. He's everything that you want in a coach, but at the same time, it seems he's more so a general manager type figure. Somebody who's gonna, reach out because look at Chad Johnson's Twitter still. He always praises Hugh Jackson and Marvin Lewis for everything that they've done for him. And so I think what it comes down to is if Marvin Lewis is, to ever, no longer be the Bengals head coach, which there's no timetable on that in the world right now. I've learned never to even guess with that. But I think that once he's done, it would not surprise me if the Bengals were to bring him back something like a general manager. It would not surprise me.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if it will happen because, of course, the Browns have a hesitation of relinquishing that power.
Yeah.
And I think Katie Blackburn would be the one that would probably look at that and say, maybe it's time for that. Of course, her and is it Mike Jr.? that is kind of handles all the contract stuff along with Katie? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember the whole structure of the Bengals organization. So I apologize, but the Bengals have a lot of potential.
Oh yeah.
And so, sitting here and going, oh no, we lost Marvin Jones. Oh no, we lost Mohamed Sanu. The season's already over is a huge overreaction.
Yeah.
Of course, I think a lot of people took a deep breath when all of a sudden George Iloka was signed. So they weren't losing a lot of their defense. But
yeah.
All in all, I think it comes down to now. It comes down to the last few days of last few major days of free agency. Obviously, free agency is going to go on for the next few months.
Yeah.
Even past the draft, but the next few days in free agency are kind of going to be the vital point.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to get into draft.
Yeah.
And so what happens over this next month and a half, 2 months, is going to be kind of the stage for how the Bengals move forward.
Yeah.
Obviously with a new offensive coordinator, things are going to be similar to Hugh Jackson. Things are going to be similar to what we saw with even Jay Gruden.
Yeah.
Because the system's still somewhat there.
Mm.
But for the most part, it's still a new coordinator.
Yeah. Who's also going to be learning how to coordinate and everything too. I mean,
absolutely.
He's no longer just going to be working with Andy Dalton. It's going to be the entire offense now.
Yeah, and the Bengals probably will need to reserve a permanent residence for Dr. House. To help Andy Dalton, because that seemed to work.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, all in all, I think the Bengals are headed in the right direction, at least at this point.
Yeah.
With everything that's been thrown at them.
Mm-hmm. They've shown a lot of resiliency throughout the past years, and it seems like the Bengals are one of those teams that just seems like they're a very close-knit group that actually enjoys one another and is really... It's one of those few locker rooms that just seems like they genuinely like each other. There's no, drama in between anyone. I mean, obviously, there's bickering here and there, but that's during the passion, and then you see them on Twitter a couple hours later just joking with the guys. It just seems to me that the Bengals have a very good veteran leadership right now. And I mean, Andy Dalton's becoming that, AJ Green's becoming that, Geno Atkins, and it seems like the baton is being passed, and the only question is, who... Not the only question, but now the only thing is, when are they going to take the next step? And many of us thought it was going to be last year. A lot of media people, thought, finally it was our time, to at least make it to the championship game. And even, after Andy Dalton got hurt and, injuries and everything, they still put up one heck of a fight. I mean, you saw it week in and week out. I mean, look at that Steelers game. That was a bloodbath. Through and through, but they kept fighting. Everyone kept fighting. It wasn't just, Perfect and Adam Jones. No, you saw so many players give their heart and soul in that game. And I think that's one of the biggest things that the Bengals have right now is just they have a lot of heart. And I think they gained that from Marvin Lewis. And I think that's one of the most underrated qualities that no one really talks about when it comes to the Bengals is their heart. They fight back. The old Bengals... I mean, look at that Seahawks game. There's no way. Look at the, Steelers game. There's no way they'd even, be in those games. But they have progressed. They have matured. They have shown time and time again that, hey, they are willing to take the next step. And sadly, things went AWire, in the playoffs. But at the same time, there's a lot of very good building blocks that show that, hey, this team can take the next step. I mean, whenever Iloka talked, he said... he can't wait. No, not can't wait. He wants to be here for whenever they do get over the bump, whenever they do, hurdle that little issue. He wants to be here for that, and I think that shows what kind of team this is.
Absolutely, no, absolutely, and I'm right there with you. I think this team is showing and making strides that they want to be. They don't want to go back to the 90s.
Yeah.
They felt the '90s. They felt the fan disappointment in the '90s, and now they're looking, going, okay, we've had this taste of winning. We've had this taste of success. It tastes good.
Yeah, it does.
So let's keep it going.
But with that said, oh, sorry, you can go on.
No, go, please.
Well, with that said, I think, you're talking about the '90s and everything. I think that there's also that's a blessing and a curse, because we're so used to this. And Mike Brown remembers the '90s very well, which is why I don't think he's always willing to make big changes. Which is why, a lot of fans were clamoring for, Mike Zimmer, Hugh Jackson, to, be the next head coach. But, Marvin Lewis is still here. And, we had Bengals players, clamor like, hey, it's time to, go after this guy, big free agency. And it seems the Bengals, Mike Brown's just very much like, hey, we're doing well, we're doing good. And it kind of seems like, sure, he, says he wants to win a Super Bowl, but at the same time, it kind of seems like he's content with where they're at now, that he doesn't want to somehow ruin it going forward. He doesn't want to spend a lot of money on one, big free agent and have that ruin, the younger player contracts and so on and so forth.
No, absolutely. I think, and I think contentness is going to be the thing that is going to hurt the Bengals the most.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's going to help the Bengals as well, because you see that chemistry.
Yeah.
And so that, when Andy Dalton's thrown to A.J. Green, they trust each other. When, Vincent Ray and once Vontaze Burfict comes back from his 3-game suspension, when you see those two trust each other, that, they're going to know where their positions are, and they're going to have each other's back.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see that chemistry, and you really trust that chemistry, and I think that's why the Bengals and Bengals fans have kind of had a high expectation.
Yeah.
Is because we know that chemistry is there. We know they're working well together.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. I have to ask, did you take my advice? Did you listen to how
Yes, I did.
Picking it up and putting it down works?
Yes, the whole 5 topics. Are we going to pick it up or are we going to put it down?
So, we've got, I've got 4. I may think of one before the last one.
Okay.
So, the first one, and for those who don't know picking up, putting down, we go with normally 5 topics, and if we want to pick it up, that means we basically are agreeing to it. We think it's going to happen, or we think it's something that is at least in the realm of very good possibility. Putting it down means, yeah, we're not so sure, we don't like that idea, or it's not something that we believe is going to happen. So I've got 4 topics. I may think of a 5th one before I get to the 4th one, because the 5th one kind of closes it out. So picking it up or putting it down, the Bengals will sign a difference-making free agent before the draft.
I'm putting that down. I could see them maybe signing, 2 more free agents, but I see them being like A.J. Hawk type of players, honestly. Maybe Curley, but I'm putting that down.
See, I really want to pick it up, and I really want to pick it up for the reason that there are still a few good free agents out there, Curley being one.
Yeah.
And I think Curley would be a difference maker because he has that type of ability to be a difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
But another one that is still kind of out there, and he's been making some visits. I haven't heard too much of him sign. I don't think he signed with anybody, and that would be James Laurinaitis.
Oh yeah.
James Laurinaitis is still out there. James Laurinaitis is a great player, of course, Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that I think that the Bengals could really benefit from, and of course, he's already got a relationship with A.J. Hawk.
Oh yeah.
And so he knows the leadership ability there. So I really want to believe it. It's hard for me to sit there and say putting it down. I'm putting it down because I don't think that in their timetable to get another one signed, that either of those two will last that long.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason I'm putting it down. I think they want to. I think they want to bring in somebody who can make a difference. but I think the hesitation to deal with it is going to, or to do it is going to be kind of their Achilles heel.
Yeah.
So I'm putting it down, but I'm putting it down with hesitation.
Yeah, you don't want to, but yeah.
Vontaze Burfict will change the way he plays, and he'll clean up his actions on the field. Are you picking that up, or are you putting that down?
You're gonna have to elaborate that one better, because is he gonna get flagged? Yeah, he's gonna.
Reputation aside. Do you think that he's going to try to honestly make an effort to adjust his play to try to keep himself clean?
I think he will, yes. I'll pick that up. I think he will try.
Successful is another thing?
I think he's going to try his best. It all depends. It all depends on the Steelers games. Those are the only ones I'm iffy about.
Okay. And you and I have seen a little bit closer than most.
Yeah.
The James Harrison situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because we somewhat live around it. And do you think it's going to be kind of one of those where he gets on the right side, sometimes he's not given the benefit of the doubt, and he still gets flagged occasionally because of that?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you think it's going to be something where, he kind of forgets and does something stupid?
I think it'll be him not getting the benefit of a doubt. I feel like that's going to happen a lot more than the other.
Okay. So, and I've got the other one, and by the way, I'm picking that up. I think he will make a conscious effort because he loves this team. He loves his teammates.
Yeah.
We talked about last week how he really didn't throw his teammates under the bus. If you listen to the whole thing, you listen to the whole context. Of it.
Oh, trust me, I was on the outside looking in at all that backlash.
And so it's becomes the thought process there of, I think he's going to try to change his play. I honestly think he's going to strive to make the effort.
Yeah.
And I think, too, that James Harrison has probably reached out
mm-hmm.
to him and said, hey, buddy, I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah.
Here's what you really got to be conscious of. Because all in all, James Harrison even said, after in the post game for that playoff game, that he's been there. He understands. He didn't believe that play was intentional, that he meant to basically run over Antonio Brown, that he was trying to make a conscious football play.
Yeah.
And he kind of came to his defense, but they've been teammates before. And granted, it was only for 1 year.
Yeah.
But they've been teammates before. So I'm picking it up. But then the next question that becomes of that is, do you think the NFL made the right move in upholding his suspension? And granted, I know we're both Bengals fans. I know we both follow the Bengals. Mm-hmm. We both love the Bengals, so there may be a little bit of a Homer-style answer here.
Yeah.
But do you think the NFL was right in the suspension, number one, and number two, the length of the suspension for Vontaze Burfict and all of this?
All right. It's going to be all right, homerism aside, I'm going to have to pick up the first part because, this isn't really the first time he's ever gone through this. He's done worse, but at the same time, he's done worse. So,
yeah.
This is kind of eye-opening to him and, to, his teammates to, give better support. Now, for how long it is, I kind of want to put that down. Because, when you look at every other suspension, it's not overly steep. I would have probably done it 1 to 2 games. So that's one of those, I kind of want to put down, but I can kind of see why it would be picked up. But I think this is going to be good for Burfict, to be suspended. I don't want it to happen. I want him to be out there, destroying people. But at the same time, I think that's going to better help him understand, as we talked about, the last question, for him to clean up his act,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a blessing and a curse, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, anybody who's listened to the podcast knows, number one, I pick up the suspension. He needs some wake-up call.
Mm-hmm.
That he needs to at least be conscious of what he's doing, and especially with the Ravens, the hit that he put on, and I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. The hit that he put on the Ravens, I think it was tight end.
Was it? It's Max Williams, yeah.
Thank you. The hit that he put on him was kind of uncalled for, and the fact that he wasn't suspended for the Steelers game was almost a shoulder shrug, because that was the epitome of basically why Odell Beckham got suspended. He just basically laid him out and targeted him.
Yeah.
The ball wasn't coming his way. He just was frustrated by something.
Yeah.
So I am picking that part up because obviously it had to have come at some point.
Yeah.
I think Eric Winston is a complete and utter jerk for not standing up for his teammate, being the NFLPA. And if it truly did come, or if it truly is, if what Vontaze said in the appeal process, that he was already, before his appeal was heard, upheld a suspension of 3 games, then if I'm the NFLPA president, which Eric Winston is, I am jumping up and down calling foul on this all day long, and he has said nothing. And so, for me, I think the suspension should be 2 games. I think it at least should have been lessened by a game or so. But at the same time, yes, he should have been suspended.
Yeah.
But with that asterisk of Eric Winston, you're now being paid $1 million to basically be the NFLPA and sit on the sidelines, do your job as an NFLPA president, and earn your $1 million.
Yeah.
Nobody else was signing you for $1 million.
Yeah. So go do work.
Yeah. But so we kind of did talk about this a little bit. But at the same time, we're going to make it somewhat official on putting it down. And that is the Bengals will draft a wide receiver in the first round.
The only way I don't see it happening is if there's an immensely talented defensive tackle there, but there's not very much depth in this draft class, so I think they're going to have to go with the wide receiver, so I'm picking that up.
I'm picking it up. Sorry, Tim, it's not Will Fuller.
Yeah.
Of Notre Dame. Tim also is a
Notre Dame. Yep.
Notre Dame.
Whenever you told me to do my homework, I heard that. I'm like, oh, all right. If it makes you feel any better, I'm a Penn State fan, so.
And I'm Ohio State with a little bit of a pit. So I like Narduzzi. But with that being said, I'm picking it up. I hate saying this, and I think that it's trash that I'm saying this. Possibly Braxton Miller.
Don't know.
He reminds me of Sanu. I don't like the fact that they would be looking at Braxton Miller in the first round. I don't think he's a first-round pick in my gut, but at the same time, he's not going to be there in the second round. And if they're going to go with somebody who is tall, is a multifaceted type player, and really is going to be replacing a Mohamed Sanu type that can play a Wildcat format, it's going to be Braxton Miller. So I'm picking it up. I'm not going Will Fuller. I'm going Braxton Miller. I'm still holding my breath on that because I don't think Braxton Miller has proven himself enough to be a first-round draft pick.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that completely 100%, to be honest. If you've looked at any of my mocks, I only did one, actually. I meant to do another one before the Combine, but that didn't really happen. But
you can somewhat blame me on that one. I saw it was up the day before the Combine, and for some reason it was like, oh, wait, and I think it had to do with work.
Yeah.
That it ended up, I just never got back to it because I knew it needed to be done. never got back to it. So you can blame me. Go right ahead.
But the guy I'm wanting to be, in stripes, which, I'm very, very worried that, the freaking Minnesota Vikings are going to take him. But it's Josh Doxson, from TCU. I mean, good acceleration off the line, keeps a consistent speed, amazing hands with numerous acrobatic catches. I saw that he had like 60%, he caught 60% of contested catches, which was like one of the highest, in the NCAA. He plays well against physical corners. He has strong hands, great body control, catches the ball at the highest point. He actually reads zone coverage very well. He'll drop in the open zone, help his quarterback out. Very good with that. His hands are absolutely his best attribute. And he tries to do some yards after catch sometimes. But again, his biggest concern is really his speed because, football speed and, combine speed are two totally different. And another thing that needs to be talked about is his size. Not just his height, but I mean he's kind of lanky. He actually kind of has like an AJ Green type body, except a little skinnier. But I think Josh Doxson has a lot of potential to really make a name for himself in the NFL, and I would absolutely love to see this man in stripes. I mean, he's my number one wide receiver, but I just don't know if he's going to be there. I just don't know.
No, and the other name that's kind of out there and still is somewhat out there, although had probably hurt himself worse than any first rounder in the combine, is Corey Coleman.
Yeah.
Out of Baylor, and good size, but isn't fast. At least not in the combine speed. So he's going to have to make it up at Pro Day and to bump back up that list, but possibly another potential to be there at the end of the day. So we're gonna close out with an interesting one because we both live near Pittsburgh.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know you're on the east side. I'm on the north. But Sean and Matt are both tired of being around Pittsburgh Steelers fans and wish that more of Houday Nation was closer.
Yeah.
Yes. How to have a little fun with that?
Yes, that. I mean, let me tell you how many times dates go sour whenever Pittsburgh Steelers fans find out that you're a Bengals fan. All of them.
Yeah. Well, that's why you find either a good Cincinnati girl or you find a girl that could care less about football.
Yeah.
I just happened to find the one that likes the Tennessee Titans. So
you're fine.
I got away with that.
Yeah, you're good. You're solid.
And she's from Western Pennsylvania, so I don't know how I scored that one.
I don't know actually.
That doesn't happen very often.
No.
I guess you're gonna have to go up to Erie and try to find a Cleveland Browns fan.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
But no, I mean they are out there.
Yeah.
Are you a Penguins fan?
I am not actually.
Okay, are you a Pirates fan?
No, I remember we grew up in Pittsburgh. How much baseball talk was there until the Pirates started becoming good?
True.
So,
but then I abandoned the Reds back when Chris Sabo and Marge Schott basically had their evil breakup, and so I haven't been a Reds fan since
since that fateful day.
Early '90s. So I went to the Cubs, and then the Cubs got sold off, and the kids playing with Daddy's money, and I ended up in Pittsburgh. So and Josh Harrison from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at least there's a Cincinnati tie there.
I actually, whenever I lived in Cincinnati for 2 years, random fact, I actually got to meet Josh Harrison a couple times, and he's actually a really, really nice guy.
Yes, he is. Oh, and believe me, him and I have had a few discussions because of some of the stuff that I've had to do for work, and I ended up meeting him, and a very nice guy. And I held up a sign at one of the games that said Harrison isn't the only one from Cincinnati that supports the Pirates. So and it got his attention because he was in the outfield, and I only sit in the outfield at PNC Park because you can see everything.
Yep.
So it's a great place to watch a baseball game. If you're in town, watch it at PNC Park. even if you don't like the Pirates, because Pirate fans aren't abusive.
Yeah, no.
At least that abusive.
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you how many times I've gone to a Pirates game and just, honestly, people just go there to watch baseball. Some of them aren't even Pirates fans. They're just like, yeah, I'm just going to sit here, and watch baseball.
So, beer's a little high.
Yeah.
But then again, with your connection, you probably ended up getting it cheaper at that point.
Yeah.
just go up to the building behind.
I don't know if I'm allowed to respond to that, but anyway.
It's a great place to watch at least a baseball game, and Console's a great place to watch a hockey game, even if you are a Blue Jackets fan. Just don't be a Flyers fan. Needless to say, great place to watch sports in Pittsburgh, minus the Steelers game, because, well, drunk Steelers fans are really where the Yinzers are. So don't talk about sports. That's how you do it on a date.
Yep.
In your case, just don't talk about sports.
I try.
And then she sits there and goes, "Those Steelers," and it's like, oh god.
Check now, please.
Well, just get them drunk next time. No, I'm kidding. I'm not supporting getting drunk people at all. I don't drink personally. So my wife does. But
so that's okay. She's a Titans fan. She drinks. It makes sense now.
Yeah, well, she's a Titans fan. She drinks, although her Titans just got a lot better.
They did.
Don't worry. But yeah, I mean, plain and simple. It's more Cincinnati fans need to come a little bit further east.
Yeah, please.
Or you and I really need to figure out how to convince people to go a little further west.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, the sports culture in Pittsburgh is great. You'll find the sports culture itself is great in Pittsburgh, but definitely don't announce that you're a fan of the Bengals in Pittsburgh, because it won't end pretty.
No, it doesn't.
But with that, of course, we're going to end on that note, because it's been fun. Did you have a good time, Sean?
Absolutely. I had a lot of fun. This was a new experience. I mean, I like talking, so this worked out pretty well for me.
Absolutely. And, of course, we'll definitely have to get you back on. We are looking at other ventures to bring on some guests and things like that, so stay tuned, especially as we get some new platforms in, so that we can bring in 3 people. So Tim and I aren't the only ones talking. And we'll definitely have to get you back on, whether it's with me or with Tim, just to get your point of view on everything, Sean. And for all of people that read Stripe Hype, please read Sean's stuff. It is very good, and especially once we get to refine it just a little bit, that we do the editing, it really comes out and is some of the better stuff on Stripe Hype. So definitely take a chance to go on, see what Sean has to write. Also, go back, look at what we said on Man in Stripes before. We pointed out a couple of things, and we definitely will look forward to next week, which we have another guest on next week. It will be, we call him Pedro now.
Yeah,
he's officially gotten a nickname.
Yep.
And so Pedro will be on with me next week, and then in 2 weeks, Tim will return. So definitely keep an eye out for all the stuff going on. We are going to be watching free agency closely. Also going to be looking at all the pro days that are going on, because those are starting up.
Yep.
So pay attention to StripeHype.com. Pay attention to Men in Stripes podcast presented by StripeHype.com. And we'll look forward to seeing, or at least having you listen to us next week. Thanks, Sean, again for coming on, and a big day.